Hello and welcome again. It's nice that you could join me as I talk about different books that I recently finished. I try to have a variety of what I read throughout my weeks, and in this one I have some new books. So in saying that, let's get started. Love's Faithful Promise. This is from the Courage to Dream series. It is a book series that I started as it was coming out, and then I paused, and it's been several years since I finally finished the last book, and I really loved the first two books. So this is the third book. Just briefly to explain this story, it's Christian historical fiction romance. It's about a family of the O'Learys. They live in Long Island, New York in the 20s, a little bit before that too, because this one is actually set in 1922 and it's the third book. But this book actually takes place some in Canada and I believe Montreal, and then some in Long Island. The first two books are about older siblings, and this book is about the two youngest siblings. There are several siblings in the O'Leary family, and they have money. They are horse ranchers. They work really hard. So now this one in particular is mainly about Deidre. Deidre? I think you say Deidre. I'm always bad at figuring out how to pronounce names that I don't know very well. I've never met a Deidre, but I think that's how it's pronounced. She is training to become a doctor one day. She just finished nursing school. As she goes to Montreal to get this one doctor in particular who does therapy for different people that had seen war and maybe have certain problems with injuries, and he's trying to help them recover. He also has a daughter, and she had been sickly at one point, and she's only 4 years old. Deidre, her mother is sick. She needs physical therapy, and they hear about this doctor, so that's why she goes over there. And the doctor's like, well, I can't leave. I have my patients. I have my daughter. She's like, well, okay, that's fine. Just let me follow you around so I can know how to do this, and I can take it back home to try to help my mother. Because of his daughter's illness, it is best for her to get some fresh air. And so she suggests, well, why don't you just come over, bring your daughter? And he's a widower, by the way. So they decide to go back, and he starts to learn a little bit more about her family. This is a Christian story, so there is stuff about faith. You know, his faith had wavered a bit. So anyway, it's about them getting along over time. There's also the youngest sibling. I believe his name is Connor. He's been working with the horses, trying to make his father proud. He wants to take over training some of them and breaking them. And there's one in particular that is really tough. He hires a new hand who just so happens to be this one young woman named Josephine, but she is doing her best to make money because her father is not doing too well, and her brother is trying his best to work. She dresses up as a young man, tries to get this job, and he hires her, and she's really good with the horses. Both of these two siblings have love interests. It is cute. I don't think it's my favorite of the three. It's my least favorite of the three of these books. First two books, I remember I gave them 4 stars. I loved these books. This book, it was nice. I enjoyed it. I was glad that I finally finished this. The Great Good Thing. Now, this is on my spring to read list. This is about a storybook where the characters are coming alive. It is really cute. They have a reader that they connect with. The main girl and her family, they start to have this understanding of this reader. And so it was pretty unique. I have not heard of something like this in a while. I thought it was creative, but it was way too short, and I feel like some of the story scattered too much, but it's so whimsical. It had a princess, it had a castle, and it was very lovely. The connection made between the friends, I really thought that it was nice. I had fun with it. The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. This is very interesting because I grew up on watching the old classic film. It was from the 40s. I love it. And I said, I need to read this book this year. I made a point to do that at the beginning of this year, which I don't have videos of saying what I wanted to read. But what's funny is that this book was actually written only like 2 years before the movie came out. So they started making the film like a year after it came out. So it must have been a really big sensation. If you don't know what this story is about, it's about this widow. She goes to this place out in the country by the water to try to find somewhere to just start fresh because she had been weighed down by her sister-in-law who was trying to kind of control her a little bit. So she goes with her 2 children. She finds this really cheap place, falls in love with it. She starts to live there. and there is someone that keeps talking to her, and she had heard that it was a haunted house and that no one was able to stay there very long. But she starts to form this friendship with this ghost, and it is an old sea captain. And they start to make these understandings between each other of how they want to run this house. And the ghost sometimes helps her out. It is very charming. It is very sweet as far as content wise. I mean, there's some funny situations that go on in this. I don't think there's anything to really worry about. There are a couple D words thrown here and there, but the captain, the widow actually says and confronts the captain saying like, I don't appreciate that. He's like, oh, this is nothing compared to what I'm holding back saying. But anyway, the whole story is very cute. I loved it. I really had fun reading this one. Just the descriptions, I felt like the banter was really exciting. Oh, there is a situation in this where she is deceived by someone at some point. I feel like this was, I don't want to like give a spoiler away, but it was all handled pretty well. So I suggest maybe you read this and then watch the movie. The movie actually held up pretty well to the book. Sunrise on the Reaping. Okay, guys. If you know about the Hunger Games, I started reading this as it was coming out. My sister-in-law gave me the first book, I think like shortly after it came out. And I was like, what's this about? And it's kind of weird to think about because now like everyone knows what it's about. It's a very popular series. It has movies. I've read all of the books now. I have not seen all of the movies. I did not see the newest movie that came out for the book that is right before this. So in case you're wondering, you have the regular series, but then there is a prequel, and then this is the prequel after that, and then it goes into the first book. But definitely read the first book first. That's my suggestion if you haven't read this series. So the Hunger Games, in case you don't know, a set of games where it's like a battle royale, very sad situation. You understand what this one area of people, how they're raised and how they're treated, and then how they don't really get the freedom that they deserve. There is someone that's in charge of them, and he is very horrible to them. He likes to kind of just be a control freak and blood. And even though it's a very violent series, I feel like it is not gory, if that makes sense. It's not crazy. There's a lot of heart in it. There's a lot of, you get a story and a sense of who the people are when you read the books. So in this book, if you know the whole series, you know that Haymitch is a very important character. He's not a main character, but he is definitely important. This is his story. So we get to finally know what his life was like before. In the first Hunger Games book, we know that he's a drunk. We know that he has seen a lot of people that he has had to train for the Hunger Games. None of them have made it. So we know that right away. They've all died. So he's very depressed. He's very sad. What got him to this point, we get to learn about the game that he experienced. So we already know that he's going to win this game as we read this book. But the way he does it and then what happens after, it's so important. I found it so touching. His character, he is such a love sap. It was beautiful. He was such a nice boy. Haymitch is so lovely, and I feel so bad for him. It was a great book. I did not like the snow story that came before this, the prequel. I had a real hard time. It was my least favorite of all the books, but this book, so good. I loved the Hunger Games. I definitely enjoyed reading it. I was an adult when it all came out, so I don't know if I would recommend this for young kids, but definitely older teens, I would recommend it for. There's nothing that I would say an older teen wouldn't be able to read. There's no sex in it. I was so happy that I got to read this pretty much right away. So definitely amazing book. I don't want to give things away, so I'll just leave it at what I said. The perfect rom-com. So this book, I listened to this one podcast where this woman, she is all about sourdough, and she has 8 kids, and she interviews different people to talk about certain things. And she had the author of this book on her podcast. I was just listening, I was enjoying it. And there was a book that I read actually by this author, maybe not last year, but the year before. I loved it. It was very good. This book, she said, was coming out, and I said, well, I guess I got to read it. So I don't know how you say the main character. Her name is Brioni. I don't know how you say it. I never heard this name before. Brioni. And I struggled because I have dyslexia, so I kept seeing it as like Byrony, and my head was like making this a different name as I read it. So the main character, she teaches people English as they come to America and want to learn it, or just anyone that's been living in America. She teaches them that. It's her grandmother's company. She's very happy with her grandmother's story. So she writes this fantasy story based off of her grandmother, the main character, not the actual author, but the main character. She writes this book. She goes to like a convention. She's specifically looking for this one agent. The agent pretty much rejects every book, but she is determined. She wants him to read her amazing story. He starts to read the manuscript and he's like, no. So she is so determined, but instead he says, you know what? He reads through it a little bit more. He's like, I want you to be a ghostwriter for another author I have. They skip like, okay, a few years pass, and then it shows like the two of them have this really close friendship now, even though she was like, oh, he's not really a great person. When they met, he has dinner with her all the time and they're together like constantly. And she's writing for this ghostwriter. So the story, that's all I'm going to say about the actual story. But I had a hard time with this book. I learned a lot about ghostwriting, that's for sure. I was very fascinated by it. And I know someone that's a ghostwriter, so I was like, I wonder if this is something that she goes through or not. What I don't like is the love interests in this. We don't really learn enough about what his life is like. Even though there's this friendship, there's not much of this spark, okay? Now, this is a clean romance book. There's nothing in it that you have to worry about. Anyone could read this book. I just couldn't buy into the relationship. I mean, I could, because I like when a relationship could be formed from a friendship, but I feel like this book was so about her goal of getting her book published. The story lacked a lot of meat that I wanted, is what I'm going to say. It wasn't that great. It wasn't bad, but I did shed a tear at the end. So I gave this 3 stars on my Goodreads. So now it was like, okay, this was an average, not bad story because I shed a tear. So maybe you like this book. It was cute. There were some cute instances. It was funny here and there. I just wanted more. The last book is a Christian book called Church Camp. The author of this book, actually, I'm on her launch team. I helped be a part of her launch team for her last book, and I loved that book. But this book, I did not love. And I feel really badly about it because it wasn't bad. It's about camp, Christian camp specifically. Yes, there is a problem if a Christian camp, you have people of color that should be able to go and afford it. Camp should be affordable for all people. She talks about that, but she also talks about the fact that she is married to a black man. She's a white woman married to a black man, and they have their children together. And so I thought, because her heart is so understanding of that, her father-in-law is even a well-known activist from the 60s. Her whole life right now, she sees things that maybe I don't see as much. Now, I am a minority in my own church. There are only a few white people in my church, hardly any. I understand to a point her concerns. My problem with this book is that it seemed, understandably, it's on her own experiences, but all of the church camps or all the camps that she talks about, for the most part, are just Southern camps. And I feel like the South has issues. There's a lot of racism in the South. It's known. But I live in New Jersey, and I've gone to several camps. And I went to one summer camp that was an all-girls camp for years and years and years. And I even worked there for 2 summers. It was my first job, and I loved it. There's this connection that everyone that went to camp has, and we had people of color there, maybe not a lot. We had leaders of different ethnicities. I remember them specifically, and I loved them, and all the girls loved them. And we had a unique group. There was a part in her book where she talks about the purity movement. Now, I don't know if that's prevalent anymore. And I think from my experience as a youth leader going to some of these camps, I didn't see that push for purity like I did in the 90s growing up. And there was one camp I went to when I was a youth where they made you like promise that you would be a virgin for marriage and gave you stickers that you had to put in the inside of your Bible. I remember a girl who was known for being with several people say, I guess I'll rededicate my life to Christ again and be pure again. She mentions a play, and I think I've seen the same play at this specific camp. It was only one camp. I didn't have that at all the other camps I went to. I didn't get it at day camp. I didn't get it at the camp I went to for several years. I didn't get it from a weekend camp I went to a couple times that I loved, that my church still sends people to. And that was another thing, is that she said how these these camps don't really have people of different colors going in, but my church, having mainly people of color, they go to this, and it's like inexpensive compared to like all these other things. She said there was a camp where it's like $1,000 something every week that you go. All the camps I went to, I looked up the prices for all of them, and they were all 700 and less. The least amount was 250. I was kind of like, I know she did her research and she interviews people. There's just a lot of stuff that I feel she was a little bit bitter about, but at the same time, I understood her heart. I think there has to be a change. You're showing love to all these people. And she makes a point about how the gospel, the hell and brimstone message, is too pushy. But again, this is a very Southern Baptist type of, and I didn't get any of that when I went to these camps. I saw instead these counselors that were just reaching out to these kids. Okay, we're going to read this part of the Bible, and just trying to be there for them. She says there's a time where all these kids just start crying because they're overwhelmed by like this pressure, and they all like accept Jesus, and that there are people that like take tally marks of how many people they won to Christ. That's horrible. That's not how it should be. I do remember one camp where everyone got a stick. They were like leaving their sins behind if they burn it. I don't remember doing it. I didn't have any problems with my faith growing up, but I saw these other kids do it because they saw that, you know, they didn't want to be looked down upon. Did I see people worshiping God and crying out sometimes maybe for attention? Yes. I understood a lot of her book because I lived some of it, but then there were other things that I think because my experiences were not her experiences, I couldn't relate. And I didn't see the same things she did, but I understand where her heart is. A lot of times I feel like she made excuses. It's hard for me to review this on here. So I'll just say that I'm supposed to promote this book. I think this could be a good book for people that maybe were hurt. Obviously, there are some people in churches and in camps where leadership failed. And I've seen such things, not at camps, but leadership specifically at churches. So I can see that. There has to be a change. We are all human that are sinful and make mistakes. There are problems, guys. There needs to be a revamp of how these camps run. I absolutely loved camps. She even said how most camps are not even rustic anymore, but my favorite camp was totally rustic. We didn't have electricity in our tents, but some of the other camps I went to, they had electricity in the cabins or the tents, or the buildings were just different. And I wanted to go to the camp that was more rustic and in the woods. I saw her points. So anyway, I'm supposed to give these reviews and promote this book, so I'm promoting it. There are things that I'm holding back on saying on here. I'll just say I love how the author writes these books that she writes. I wanted to give her a big hug because I could feel her hurt. But I also thought there was some beauty. She interviewed several people that had been hurt, and maybe things could be handled differently. So that wraps it up. I had a couple other books that I finished, but I'm going to leave that for my next portion because this is already so long. So thank you guys, and I hope you enjoy reading. Let me know what you thought of these books. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Maybe you just love them all. I mean, that's fine. So, oh, and Church Camp, I think it comes out the 25th of April. I don't know when this video is coming out. There you have it if you're interested in that. I gave it 3 stars. That's everything, guys. Bye. Have a wonderful day.